was very cultured of Kardama Muni to give credit to the demigods. Oh, the demigods have shown mercy on us, because he understood that demigods had asked for the Lord to appear because of the accumulated. That's how it went, right? That he said that because of the accumulated sins of the living entities. So I can find the verse here. Maybe come back to me. I'll find the verse and it'll make more sense.
I just realized I'll just use a light. May I begin? The outside People's Party seems to be frozen. Maybe they're frozen. Yeah, they're definitely frozen. Is anybody there in the outside People's Party? Should I proceed? Is there anything wrong with me going ahead? You can hear me. It won't get recorded, but that's all right. It's being recorded anyway, right? Okay. We're continuing with the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 24. Text 32. Thank you. My dear Lord, your lotus feet are the reservoir that always deserves to receive worshipful homage from all great sages eager to understand the absolute truth. You are full in opulence, renunciation, transcendental fame, knowledge, strength, and beauty, and therefore I surrender myself unto your lotus feet. Purport. Actually, those who are searching after the absolute truth must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worship him. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna advised Arjuna many times to surrender unto him, especially at the end of the 9th chapter. Manvana bhavamad bhakta. If you want to be perfect, just always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your obeisances to me. In this way you will understand me, the personality of Godhead, and ultimately you will come back to me, back home, back to Godhead. Why is it so? The Lord is always full in 6 opulences, as mentioned herein: wealth, renunciation, fame, knowledge, strength, beauty, and beauty. The word purtam means in full. No one can claim that all wealth belongs to him, but Krishna can claim it, since he has full wealth. Similarly, he is full in knowledge, renunciation, strength, and beauty. He is full in everything, and no one can surpass him. Another one of Krishna's names is Asvamurdva, Asamurdva, which means no one is equal to or greater than him. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is the fully cognizant maintainer of all the universes, under the 3 modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. Purport. The 6 opulences, wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, are indicated here by Kardama Muni, who addresses Kapila Muni, his son, as Param. The word Param is used in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the phrase Param Satyam, to refer to the summum bonum of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param is explained further by the next word, Pradhanam, which means the chief, the origin, the source of everything, Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not formless. He is Purusham, or the enjoyer, the original person. He is the time element and is all cognizant. He knows everything, past, present, and future, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says, I know everything, past, present, and future, in every corner of the universe. The material world, which is moving under the spell of the 3 modes of nature, is also a manifestation of his energy. Parasya Shaktir Vivadaiva Shruyate. Everything that we see is an incarnation, is an interaction of his energies. Shvetashvatar Upanishad. Parasya Brahmana Shaktis Tatedam Akilam Jagat. This is the version of the Vishnu Purana. We can understand that whatever we see is an interaction of the 3 modes of material nature. But actually, it is all an interaction of the Lord's energy. Lokapalam, he is actually the maintainer of all living entities. Nitya Nityanam, he is the chief of all living entities. He is one, but he maintains many, many living entities. God maintains all other living entities, but no one can maintain God. That is his Swachanda Shakti. He is not dependent on others. What is that? Swachanda Shakti. Swachanda Shakti. Swachanda Shakti. Mark it. Somebody mark it. Who's there can mark it for me? Thank you. Swachanda Shakti. He is not dependent on others. Someone may call him independent, but he is still dependent on someone higher. The personality of Godhead, however, is absolute. There is no one higher than or equal to him. Kapila Muni appeared as the son of Kardama Muni, but because Kapila is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kardama Muni offered respectful obeisances unto him with full surrender. Another word in this verse is very important. Atmanubhutyānugata prapancham. The Lord descends either as Kapila or Rama, Nrsimha or Varaha. And whatever forms he assumes in the material world are all manifestations of his personal internal energy. They are never forms of the material energy. The ordinary living entities who are manifested in this material world have bodies created by the material energy. But when Krishna or any one of his expansions or parts of the expansions descends on this material world, although he appears to have a material body, his body is not material. He always has a transcendental body. But fools and rascals who are called mudhas consider him one of them, and therefore they deride him. They refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they cannot understand him. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajananti ma mudha. Those who are rascals and fools deride me. When God descends in a form, this does not mean that he assumes his form with the help of the material energy. He manifests his spiritual form as he exists in his spiritual kingdom. What should I do? You need what? The bulb? Okay. You will get. Just you will get. There's that. And now we just have to trace its origins. Can you trace its origins? You unplugged it? Say the verse, say the verse. Yasyedam atmadi jagad vilayam madhye sheshi mana sukhanubu niriha. Nyasyedam atmadi jagad vilayam madhye sheshi mana nijasukhanubu niriha. Tvam atmanisha bhuvigandam ivati sukshmam. Bhutendriyashayamaye vitatam dadarsham. Something good must be happening because Chakadola is moving about. Okay, number 34. Whoa. That's the solution to everything in the Brahmacharya ashram. Get a cheddar. I think we were okay without it, actually. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it was an improvement. Although we're so deeply touched.
We could hang it up somewhere.
Just stand there. Let's turn it off. It's too much. I mean, I don't see the point. You're all reading on electronic devices anyways. It's eerie. There, that's better. We'll continue. Today, A for effort. Today I have something to ask from you, who are the Lord of all living entities. Since I have now been liberated from you, by you, from my debts to my Father, and since all my desires are fulfilled, I wish to accept the order of an itinerant mendicant. Renouncing this family life, I wish to wander about, free from lamentation, thinking always of you in my heart. Purport. Actually, sannyas or renunciation of material household life necessitates complete absorption in Krishna consciousness and immersion in the self. One does not take sannyas, freedom from family responsibility and a renounced order of life, to make another family or to create an embarrassing transcendental fraud in the name of sannyas. The sannyasi's business is not to become proprietor of so many things and amass money from the innocent public. A sannyasi is proud that he is always thinking of Krishna within himself. Of course, there are two kinds of devotees of the Lord. It's not ongoing yet. One who is called Goshtianandi, which means those who are preachers. We'll just stay focused. Of course, there are two kinds of devotees of the Lord. One is called Goshtianandi, which means those who are preachers and have many followers for preaching the glories of the Lord, and who live among those many, many followers just to organize missionary activities. Other devotees are Atmanandi, or self-satisfied, and do not take the risk of preaching work. They remain therefore alone with God. In this classification was Kardama Muni. He wanted to be free from all anxieties and remain alone within his heart with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parivraja means an itinerant mendicant. A mendicant sannyasi should not live anywhere for more than 3 days. He must be always moving because his duty is to move from door to door and enlighten people about Krishna consciousness. The Personality of Godhead, Kapila said, "Whatever I speak, whether directly or in the scriptures, is authoritative in all respects for the people of the world. O Muni, because I told you before that I would become your son, I've descended to fulfill this truth." Purport. Kardama Muni was to leave his family life to completely engage in the service of the Lord. But since he knew that the Lord himself, as Kapila, had taken birth in his home as his own son, why was he preparing to leave home to search out self-realization or God realization? God himself was present in his home. Why should he leave home? Such a question may certainly arise. But here it is said that whatever is spoken in the Vedas and whatever is practiced in accordance with the injunctions of the Vedas is to be accepted as authoritative in society. Vedic authority says that a householder must leave home after his 50th year. Pancha shordvam vanam vrjet. One must leave his family life and enter the forest after the age of 50. This is an authoritative statement of the Vedas, based on the division of social life into 4 departments of activities: brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Kardama Muni practiced yoga very rigidly as a brahmachari before his marriage, and he became so powerful and attained so much mystic power that his father, Brahma, ordered him to marry and beget children as a householder. Kardama did that also. He begot 9 good daughters and 1 son, Kapila Muni, and thus his householder duty was also performed nicely, and now his duty was to leave. Even though he had the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son, he had to respect the authority of the Vedas. This is a very important lesson. Even if one has God in his home as his son, one should still follow the Vedic injunctions. It is stated, Mahajano yena gatasa panta. One should traverse the path which is followed by great authorities. Personalities. Kardama Muni's example is very instructive, for in spite of having the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son, he left home just to obey the authority of the Vedic injunction. Kardama Muni states here the main purpose of his leaving home. While traveling all over the world as a mendicant, he would always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and thereby be free from all the anxieties of material existence. In this age of Kali, sannyas is prohibited because persons in this age are all Shudras and cannot follow the rules and regulations of sannyas life. It is very commonly found that so-called sannyasis are addicted to nonsense, even having private relationships with women. This is the abominable situation in this age. Although they dress themselves as sannyasis, they still cannot free themselves from the 4 principles of sinful life, namely illicit sex, life, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Since they are not freed from these 4 principles, they are cheating the public by posing as swamis. In Kali Yuga, the injunction is that no one should accept sannyas. Of course, those who actually follow the rules and regulations must take sannyas Generally, however, people are unable to accept sannyas life, and therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stressed, Kalo nastyeva 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 gatiranyata. In this age, there is no other alternative, no other alternative, no other alternative than to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The main purpose of sannyas is to be in constant companionship with the Supreme Lord, either by thinking of Him within the heart or hearing of Him through oral reception. In this age, hearing is more important than thinking, because one's thinking may be disturbed by mental agitation. But if one concentrates on hearing, he will be forced to associate with the sound vibration. Mark that, okay, Sudhira? Of Krishna. Krishna and the sound vibration Krishna are non-different. I said mark it because I pulled out 4 what I feel to be foundational quotes Prabhupada made, statements Prabhupada made about chanting japa. And in one of them he calls japa forced meditation. So I thought this gives a bit of an answer to what that really means. It doesn't answer it in the context of where I found it, but here it says, in this age, hearing is more important than thinking, because one's thinking may be disturbed by mental agitation, but if one concentrates on hearing, he will be forced to associate with the sound vibration of Krishna. That's the answer. Krishna and the sound vibration Krishna are non-different, so if one loudly vibrates Hare Kṛṣṇa, he will be able to think of Krishna immediately. 3. Hare Kṛṣṇa. This process of chanting is the best process of self-realization in this age. Therefore, Lord Caitanya preached it so nicely for the benefit of all humanity. My appearance in this world is especially to explain the philosophy of Sankhya, which is highly esteemed for self-realization by those desiring freedom from the entanglement of unnecessary material desires. Here the word durashayat is very significant. Dur refers to trouble or dukkha, miseries. Ashayat means from the shelter. We conditioned souls have taken shelter of the material body, which is full of troubles and miseries. Foolish people cannot understand the situation, and this is called ignorance, illusion, or the spell of Maya. Human society should very seriously understand that the body itself is the source of all miserable life. Modern civilization is supposed to be making advancement in scientific knowledge, but what is this scientific knowledge? It is based on bodily comforts only, without knowledge that however comfortably one maintains his body, the body is destructible. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, these bodies are destined to be destroyed. Nityas yokta sharirina refers to the living soul or the living spark within the body. That soul is eternal, but the body is not eternal. For our activity, we must have a body. Without a body, without sense organs, there is no activity. But people are not inquiring whether it is possible to have an eternal body. Actually, they aspire for an eternal body, but because even though they engage in sense enjoyment, that sense enjoyment is not eternal. They are therefore in want of something which they can enjoy eternally, but they do not understand how to attain that perfection. Sankhya philosophy, therefore, as stated herein by Kapiladeva, is tattvanam. The Sankhya philosophy system is designed to afford understanding of the real truth. What is that real truth? The real truth is knowledge of how to get out of the material body, which is the source of all trouble. Lord Kapila's incarnation or descent is especially meant for this purpose. That is clearly stated here. This path of self-realization, which is difficult to understand, has now been lost in the course of time. Please know that I have assumed this body of Kapila to introduce and explain this philosophy to human society again. Purport, it is not true that Sankhya philosophy is a new system of philosophy introduced by Kapila as material philosophers introduced new kinds of mental speculative thought to supersede that of another philosopher. On the material platform, everyone, especially the mental speculator, tries to be more prominent than others. The field of activity of the speculators is the mind. There is no limit to the different ways in which one can agitate the mind. The mind can be unlimitedly agitated, and thus one can put forward an unlimited number of theories. Sankhya philosophy is not like that. It is not mental speculation. It is factual, but at the time of Kapila, it was lost. In due course of time, a particular type of knowledge may be lost or may be covered for the time being. That is the nature of this material world. A similar statement was made by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Sakali Neha Mahata Yogo Nashta. In course of time, the yoga system as stated in Bhagavad Gita was lost. It was coming in parampara, disciplic succession, but due to the passage of time it was lost. The time factor is so pressing that in the course of time everything within this material world is spoiled or lost. The yoga system of Bhagavad Gita was lost before the meeting of Krishna and Arjuna. Therefore Krishna again enunciated the same ancient yoga system to Arjuna, who could actually understand Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, Kapila also said that the system of Sankhya was not exactly being introduced by him. It was already current, but in course of time it was mysteriously lost, and therefore he appeared to reintroduce it. That is the purpose of the incarnation of Godhead. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Dharma means the real occupation of the living entity. When there is a discrepancy in the eternal occupation of the living entity, the Lord comes and introduces the real occupation of life. Any so-called religious system that is not in the line of devotional service is called adharma samstapana. When people forget their eternal relationship with God and engage in something other than devotional service, their engagement is called irreligion. How can one get out of the miserable condition of material life? How one can get out of the miserable condition of material life is stated in Sankhya philosophy, and the Lord himself is explaining this sublime system. Thank you. That's my AI robot. I've taken him wherever I go. Okay, so let's see if you have any reflections or questions. Devavrata is ready to go. That's a good sign. Text 34, okay? You got to use the mic. Or we'll have a revolution from the outside people's party. I've seen it before. It's not.
Of course, there are two kinds of devotees of the Lord. One is called Goshtyanandi, which means those who are preachers and have many followers for preaching the glories of the Lord, and who live among those many followers just to organize missionary activities. Other devotees are Atmanandi, or self-satisfied, and do not take the risk of preaching work. What is the risk of preaching work?
The risk of preaching work is something that is mentioned in a couple of ways. One way is in disciples. One may feel overburdened, and therefore there's an enigmatic series of sentences that Prabhupada gives to explain this. He says, therefore one should not take, well, there's an injunction. One should not take an unlimited number of disciples because of the burden it may cause to the person who's accepting those disciples. But he says that as far as the risk goes, that actually look up that quotation. I want to hear it exactly. Unlimited number of disciples, yeah. See if you can find it in that section. So one of the risks is is assuming the burden of many disciples. There's some indication in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Sanatana Goswami says, just like a king takes some of the resultant karma of the citizens, so he should manage properly. So he compares that to a spiritual master taking on some residual karma from the disciples also, which can cause a consternation. And so that's a risk. And it's just risky to deal with people in general, because they are predictable in that they're going to be. Yeah. That there's always there'll always be some seemingly intractable situation when you're dealing with people. Love, hate, indifference, all kinds of different ways in which when we deal with people, we have to find workarounds. And compared to a life of an Atmanandi who just stays away from the whole thing, there's that sense also.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yes, please do.
So why take up preaching work to begin with?
It's mo better. It's mo better. Because it's pleasing to Krishna. And therefore it's worth the risk. Uh-oh, this went dark. I must have waited too long. So taking the risk. Thank you. Let's see what we got here. The one point is that without increasing the number of disciples, there is no propagation of the cult. Therefore, sometimes, even at a risk, a sannyasi in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may accept. What's wrong with this? There's something wrong. It's all choppy. Do you have the same thing somewhere where I can read it? Oh, okay. Sorry, I was unfamiliar. I'll try again.
Like they say, 3 times
Ha 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 ha. That's in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 19. What?
I'm not sure if that's the right one.
Well, it's got something. Can I have the other one back, please? I'll do better this time. Double-fisted Shastra. Bring it on. The spiritual master must never be carried away by an accumulation of wealth or a large number of followers. A bona fide spiritual master will never become like that. But sometimes if a spiritual master is not properly authorized and only on his own initiative becomes a spiritual master, he may be carried away by an accumulation of wealth and large number of disciples. His is not a very high grade of devotional service. If a person is carried away by such achievements, then his devotional service becomes slackened. One should therefore strictly adhere to the principles of disciplic succession. So that's a risk. That's a risk mentioned in the Madhurya Kadambini also, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says when one is seen by some as being worthy of teaching, then they give accolades, they give material wealth and things like that. And one could then just get happy with that and say, hey, this is better than working at the 7-Eleven. So one could be carried away by that fame, adoration, and distinction. That's a risk. And then here, the one point is that without increasing the number of disciples, there's no propagation of the cult of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sometimes even at a risk, a sannyasi in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may accept even a person who is not thoroughly fit to become a disciple. Later on, by the mercy of such a bona fide spiritual master, the disciple is gradually elevated, However, if one increases the number of disciples simply for some prestige or false honor, he will surely fall down in the matter of executing Krishna consciousness. There's another one. There's one more quote. Yes? Okay.
I've heard that there's a discussion in ISKCON right now with wanting to increase the number of initiating spiritual masters.
There is, yeah.
And
I think.
I guess a question that I have is, with these risks which come along with taking disciples, how does an institution evaluate the qualification of initiating spiritual masters? Because based on what's being said, it's a very serious responsibility.
Well, an institution can't really evaluate very well. The disciple can evaluate because it's a relationship between the disciple and the guru. The guru catches the disciple by shiksha, and the disciple catches the guru by diksha, is the way it works. There's a way in which somebody's just out there preaching, somebody's going to start hanging around and go like, hey, what are you doing here again today? And you're here the third day and fourth day, and they're like, mm-hmm. And next thing you know, they want to become a disciple. So then there's that natural way in which when somebody is removing somebody's doubts, they represent for somebody their ideal in Krishna consciousness. And there's a way that people are going to want to take shelter of them. It's the most natural thing in the world, because that's what living entities do in every species of life. They find somebody, queen bee, and say, okay, we'll work for you. And that's how it really unfolds. Institutions can do the best they can, but it gets a little muddled in the process. But at least there should be education, and on both sides for disciples and the people who are entering into it, an understanding of some responsibility to the institution and to the governing body and so forth, because Prabhupada set up a kind of democratic system with an authority, because he had seen how the Gaudiya Math, maybe this is not as germane, but he had seen how the Gaudiya Math naturally broke off into smaller groups that became insular because people didn't have a central authority. Either way you do it, it's going to be slightly messy, because the individual impetus and then the institution balancing act takes a little finesse, to say the least. But it'll work. Did you find another one?
Yeah, that's the risk you mentioned. Jiva Goswami mentions it from at the time of initiation.
Okay. At the time of initiation. Okay. At the time of initiation, Krishna absolves the initiate of all karmic reactions due for past sinful acts. I read that wrong. At the time of initiation, Krishna absolves the initiate of all karmic reactions due for past sinful acts. The spiritual master, however, as the representative of Krishna, also shares in removing the disciple's karma. Krishna, being infinite, can never be affected by such karma, whereas the spiritual master, although completely pure, is finite. The spiritual master therefore partially suffers the reactions for a disciple's sins, sometimes becoming ill. Jiva Goswami warns that a spiritual master should not take too many disciples because of the danger of accepting an overload of karma. Not only does the spiritual master accept the previous karma of the disciples, but if the disciples commit sins after initiation, then for those also the spiritual master may become ill. Where'd you get this? Oh, Lilamrita. There's another quote still too, where, anyway, I can't remember exactly how it goes. Tara, do you remember? No, okay. Yes?
This is another. I don't think it's the quote you're looking for, but this is just the Jiva Goswami's commentary in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And the verse is attachment to disciples and following the two items A sannyasi must not be eager to make unqualified
Closer.
disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read books that disrespect the Lord or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He should not engage in big projects which distract him from spiritual goals. This is Jiva Goswami's commentary. Though the topic under discussion in the Bhagavatam is sannyas dharma, and therefore the 3 rules apply to a renounced person, the rules are also applicable to other devotees. In any case, this rule means that one should not accept unqualified disciples. This is because we see examples of Narada and others taking disciples, though they were renounced. If the rule was literally followed and no disciples were made, then the sampradaya would be destroyed, because there would be no lineage. Consequently, there would be an appearance of false knowledge. Thus, the rule that a devotee should not be attached to making disciples actually means that the devotee should not accept unqualified disciples in order to increase the numbers in one's sampradaya. The injunction, and that's it on that topic.
Okay. This is similar. It's not the one I'm looking at, but it was very nice what you found. But it may add to the bulk of the conversation. Go ahead. A comment? Like to make a comment? Okay. Are you satisfied, Devavrata? Okay. What else would you like to know about this before we change subjects and take the mic? We'll get right back to you, Patita Pavana. Let's see.
It's just, I know it's an individual thing, but simultaneously devotees' lives in ISKCON are so much affected by specifically the systems of guru in the institution and who's allowed to initiate, who's not allowed to initiate. So my concern is that if people who are advanced devotees in their own right, but maybe not qualified to be accepting spiritual masters, my concern is that there could be a repeat of the way things went in the early days, is that young devotees were taking disciples, although they're advanced, although they're highly qualified and doing very important service, it just got carried away. So it's more just a concern in terms of, yes, there's a need for spiritual masters, but simultaneously there's a way in which I've noticed that according to the location someone's in, someone can just kind of gravitate and, well, this is the guru, and even if you understand what I'm saying, it's just the life of a devotee is so much influenced by ISKCON, and although the individual's own inspiration is what's meant to guide them to the shelter of a spiritual master, sometimes the status quo and the groupthink of the institution can obstruct the individual's inspiration in seeking out bona fide shelter.
Well, that's already happening in places. Groupthink is as easy as falling off a log, and becoming, gravitating to groupism and mine's better than yours and only this one and so forth is the default mode of most people. So there has to be enlightenment. There has to be reading of Prabhupada's books. There has to be a sense of bringing the standard up to see that this is not some material designation, but it's a way in which we're helping to channel Krishna's mercy to as many people as possible and allow them to have proper guidance. And people need to have a sense of identity. It's not also that we can do away with that sense of family. As Prabhupada mentions in the Adi Leela first chapter, Chaitanya Charitamrita, that people, just as a child needs parents to mature properly, then similarly one needs a spiritual master. It's also psychological. There's a sense of needing to have the feeling of being, having a spiritual parent and having a sense of identity there. It's a very deep thing. So there's no simple, easy way, because we're dealing with large numbers of people and we have ambitious goals. to spread it all over the world and so forth. So it requires some forethought. But we also, as you brought up in the beginning, we have to take risks. That's one of the risks, is that there are these, sometimes people become wayward, and then there's some disturbance. But the other thing is, you just play prevent defense all day long. You're not going to get anywhere with the Sankirtan movement either. And we also can't go to more efficient systems that are really sterile. The idea of, let's just have Prabhupada take all the disciples kind of thing. It's a highly efficient method in one way. But there's, you can do. This is not the way, but you can do. Anyway, it's a big subject. Okay, Patit Pavana.
That statement that you also wanted, the statement you highlighted about the importance of hearing over remembering or thinking about the Lord, that also struck me because it reminded me of a dialogue with the Vishnu Dutas from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, 2, 3, 146 through 184. They very extensively elaborate how actually hearing and chanting is more potent and more effective than remembering the Lord.
Say it again, which part?
This is 2.3.146 through 184. It's a long discussion, and it's the commentary also elaborates, and I thought maybe it'd be pertinent to you, but also I just thought to bring it out.
Nice. Yes, I remember that section well. It's a very important part. Okay, anything else? Outside People's Party, I'm looking now, I can see. Someone's asking for the mic. The mic is moving. She doesn't want the mic. Now it's going back. Now she sat down. It's not going to happen. Go ahead.
I found the verse that I was trying to find earlier, 27. Lord Kapila Dev, Kardama Muni says, after a long time the demigods of this universe have become pleased with the suffering souls who are in material entanglement because of their own misdeeds. And Srila Prabhupada talks about how this is a reference to how the demigods are distressed by the suffering of the conditioned souls, and so they feel the burdening on the planet, and they approach Brahma, who approaches the Lord. This is what happened when Krishna himself appeared. So I just thought it was interesting that Kardama Muni, I just thought it was very cultured, that he understands that there's a system and that there are higher living entities who are sensitive to the status and how people are doing. And they're like older siblings, and they're approaching the parent, and the Lord is coming on behalf of these responsible living entities. So I just, because I think that's one of the first things he says, actually. This is actually the first thing he says in his discussion with Kapila Dev, is he gives respect to the demigods. It's just a very cultured thing, like all glories to, my elder siblings, all glories to the people who are looking out for us, because now you've come because of them. It's like honoring the devotees.
Yeah, very high-minded principles, and it's nice that you resonate with that. Prabhupada Priya.
I'm just wondering about this question that Prabhupada raised in the Purport about Kardama Muni taking sannyas even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead was in his household. Because, I get it that how Prabhupada explains it, that the Varnashram system is like that and you have to follow Krishna's system. But at the same time, we understand that Varnashram is something external. And, there's that axiom that you can break a lower principle for a higher principle. I would think that, nowadays, I'm just wondering if maybe it's because it's in the beginning of the creation, and he's feeling like it's very important to establish systems of dharma for subsequent generations to follow for their gradual liberation. Because nowadays in Kali Yuga, no one's going to take sannyasa when God's in their home. I don't think anyone would be advised or expected to do that. But I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's a plausible thought and understanding of it. I'd think of it more in terms of, let's say Prabhupada's here. There were cases, I mean, we came to Mayapur. Prabhupada told us all to come to Mayapur and Vrindavan, so we'd all come on a jumbo jet together, charter flight. And I remember one year that Rohini Sutta and Manidhar, who were famous for their book distribution, didn't come. And Prabhupada said, why didn't they come? He said, they were feeling compelled to serve you by going on distributing books and not coming, and Prabhupada appreciated. And there are ways in which devotees all the time, either Prabhupada or their guru's there, and then they're off in the kitchen the whole time. Of course, it's important to be able to hear, but the fact is sometimes people are there in abstentia because they're off doing some service. That's more the mood I took it in, that he was ready to go. He had already met the Lord earlier, and now he was duty bound to go deeply within it. It's also a subject of the Tirobhav, that after spiritual master leaves, one is to then go more deeply within oneself and understand what the Guru taught. Because there is a tendency when the Guru is on the planet to just go with the herd in a way, and when the Guru leaves, then there's more individual responsibility on each disciple to figure out what was the Guru really saying, and am I following it? So I took it more in that vein, because the rules of the Varnashram are not just pedantic. They're not just, for the sake of following. They're meant to take you somewhere ultimately. So that was more the mood I understood, that context of him leaving, even though he was there, and the sense that Prabhupada gave, that one's duty bound, also is parallel with this thought that the Lord is found not in necessarily being in the same house, because he's in our hearts anyway. I remember one of the videos that's a memories of Srila Prabhupada and Sureshwar Prabhu was in Hawaii, and he got this determination that, okay, all the more recognized devotees are getting close to Prabhupada on the morning walk. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get close. And so he kept jockeying for position to get closer to Prabhupada on his walk. And Prabhupada had this tendency to stop suddenly when he was making a point. So Sureshwar said he was jockeying, and the main thing he was trying to do was get closer, and then Prabhupada stopped. And Sureshwar said he stopped just in enough time, if you ever had this happen on the freeway, and he said, my nose was this far away from the back of Prabhupada's head. And he said, it was in that moment that I realized that it wasn't physical proximity that made the difference. Because he said, I'd never been closer physically to my spiritual master. He said, but I didn't feel close spiritually because I had pushed my way to the front of the group and now was 1 inch away from his head. So it's sort of in that mood that he goes off, and the Lord's there in his heart. He's Atmanandi. He's going to be there relishing his association, whether he's in the house or somewhere outside.
I'm thinking also may have to do with the separation that we're that was brought up in class, that
That's another thing.
because he's saying that the reason he wants to go is so he can think of him, so he can focus on remembering him.
That's
and
the
remembrance
concept of the
intensifies.
Tirobhav also.
Yeah.
In a paradoxical way. There's a way in which, when the guru leaves, there's a closer, more intimate relationship because of this sense of he's there. My guru is there in my heart, and I'm following. So yeah, nice points came out. Yes. I'm looking out to the outside party. Oh, Gopal, go ahead, Gopal. Sorry. Oh, you did. Can I see it? Double-fisted. Go ahead, Gopal. Work with me, people. Once you're trying to artificially advance the kind. Come on, let me see it. All right. Gopal Prabhu, you got it.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Physical proximity is not the answer.
There was a mention of 50 years to take Vanaprastha retirement in the purports. And
50 years, Vanaprastha retirement, and it said sannyas.
How much support is the society giving to people when they want to take a kind of Vanaprastha situation in life and moving forward towards death also? I've heard a mention of dying facilities in Mayapur and Vrindavan for devotees to go back home.
Can we do one at a time?
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Because then it gets into like...
Sure.
I've always felt that Vanaprastha is an overlooked ashram, and it could be much more developed. I've brought it up a few times, and I've seen Jayadvaita Maharaj starting to, in his own revolutionary way, just giving Vanaprastha initiation to people. You'll notice them, well, not very much, because I think there's only a few, but they wear, not my choice of yellow, but they wear these yellow outfits. I mean, it's a dhoti and stuff. They just make it yellow. And then he gives them some kind of Vanaprastha acknowledgement, initiation type of thing. And I think that, Gopal, it would be nice to have that type of acknowledgement and support for the Vanaprastha ashram. Because if you don't have the rung, nobody's going to climb the ladder. If you just skip that rung altogether, then what's sannyas? And nowadays sannyas, there's a lot of, where's Mahendra? A lot of red tape. It's going to take you 5-6 years, and it's going to, it's complicated. So, yeah, I think Vanaprastha is a good idea. Okay, I found the quote. Actually, I should say Sudhira found the quote. Uh-oh, now it's gone. Fleeting. I don't know these type of phones. I only know Mac or Apple. This is the quote, accepting an unlimited number of disciples or devotees or disciples is very risky for one who is not a preacher. I've always appreciated that. That was Prabhupada's mood. Accepting an unlimited number of devotees or disciples is very risky for one who is not a preacher. So, it goes on from there. I'll read the rest. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, a preacher has to accept many disciples, expand the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. To expand the cult. This is risky because when a spiritual master accepts the disciple, he naturally accepts the disciple's sinful activities and their reactions. Unless he is very powerful, he cannot assimilate all the sinful reactions of his disciples and has to suffer the consequences. Therefore, one is generally forbidden to accept many disciples. This turn of phrase is there in the beginning, though, and it defines, for me, Prabhupada's mood especially. Accepting an unlimited number of devotees or disciples is very risky for one who is not a preacher. So it has so much to do with one's intention in accepting disciples. And that's also the important factor and not causing strain on the rest of the organization. If there's some other motive, then it's going to be problematic. Okay. Were you satisfied, Gopal? To some degree. Questions? Okay. Anything else? Sutra Malika, welcome to Govardhana Hill.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, Gurudev. So I have this question: the Goshthyanandi and the Atmanandi. Is it just by the nature of a person that one becomes a Goshthyanandi or Atmanandi, or which one is actually preferred one? For obviously for us, Goshthyanandi is considered like a much more elevated soul.
That's the mood of our Guru Varga. So Prahlad Maharaj, I want to be there. And Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, let's go to this, let's go downtown. Let's be right where all the people are. That's more of the mood. When Prabhupada just defines ahimsa, he said it means it means to stop the preaching of Krishna consciousness. So that's really the mood of our sampradaya that's coming down to us. And Krishna's mood in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are teaching the devotees the Bhagavad Gita and so forth, they're putting themselves out there. They're the most dear to me. However, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta pointed out that we have Bhajananandis. His guru was a Bhajanandi, and so was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. But he said, if you look at I think he gave an example of a ship, and he said that then if you look underneath, what's making the big ship go? There's the engine room. And so when we don't disparage them, we see that they're the support, or they're the engine, because they show the example of where the real power is coming from. It's coming from the holy names, a pure holy name from Shuddhanam. But it's better to be a Bhajananandi, a Goshthyanandi. Yeah. So you can't retire.
No, I'm just wondering.
Actually, Prabhupada gave some indication that devotees dedicated a certain number of years to preaching, they could retire. And they could come to Mayapur, Vrindavan. He said, I've made these arrangements so that you could come here and do this.
Yeah, from my point of view, real quick, 1 minute.
No, that's all right. I'm not trying to rush you. I was just checking the time.
I sometimes feel a little uncomfortable approaching people, who are unwilling. So, when people do come to me, I'm very happy to explain to them. And that happens naturally sometimes, sometimes people just come up to me and then they are very eager to ask questions. But then, when we go to Harinams, sometimes it's just a little bit of hesitation, because you can see that the other person is not at all receptive. Then, I'm kind of hesitant.
I've got some really good news for you. This is going to change your life. We're supposed to approach people that are not interested.
Jai.
Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopekshaya karoti samajamaha. This is the admonition of the Shastra that says, for a preacher, you're meant to be selective. You're not trying to convince everybody. You're trying to select the people who are already balisheshu. The balisheshus, that's plural, means people who are open-minded. They want to hear what you have to say. So from this day forward, I want you to give up the anxiety that you have to talk to people who are unwilling. In fact, it's enjoined in the same verse that you should not speak to people who are unwilling.
Thank you very much.
You can thank me later. It saves a lot of trouble. In fact, it's one of the main things that I inculcate when talking about book distribution, because the number one fear people have is that they're going to get rejected. And I teach a method by which you can sort out who's not going to reject you before you even approach them. It's scientific and guaranteed. And if you use my system and you don't sell a book, I'll pay for every book you don't sell. So but it's the natural way to preach, is to just be there and try to find the people who are open. We've come to the end. You have to come to my seminar. And that costs $1,200. That's the introductory one for $1,200. I have a scale that I teach. It's a 1 to 10 scale. And when I show devotees how to use the scale when they're out in public or anywhere else, and from 1 to 5, it's a no-go. You're not going to be able to break through. From 5.1 upwards, the people, you can start to see the symptoms. You have to learn how to use the system, but from 5.1 upwards, you start to see there's openings where people could be open. So if you're really expert, you can start working just with the people at 5.1, 5.2. But if you want to not cause yourself any anxiety, you can just look for 5.5, 6, 7. When you get up to 7, they're going to come after you. And even at 6.5 and 5.4, there's openings there, so that it's very clear. So I teach how to make a conscious connection with people anywhere, and then get a sounding from them just by saying hi. And then you can see the way they respond of where they are in the scale. Some of it has to do with their eyes, and the other has to do with their mouth. As with the mouth, if they smile no teeth, they haven't reached 5.1 yet. Smile with no teeth. Shami Pras. Do you see that? Put the camera on them so they can see. Smile no teeth. See, that's bogus. That's not a real smile. That means I'm not open. How's that look? It's a courtesy smile, and it's actually kind of off. It's off-putting, and they're trying to put you off. Like, yeah. Here's what this says. Yeah, no. And so, if they can lift their lip a little higher, and you see their teeth, see that? Then they're starting to get to 5.1. And there's other parts, their body language, how fast they're moving and things like that. But it's something you can figure out instantaneously when you make a conscious contact with people. Make a point?
I was just going to ask if you had this written somewhere with the symptoms of each degree.
I haven't written it out yet, because one of the reasons I don't write some of these things out is that it sounds really manipulative. When it gets to writing, and I didn't put anything like this in my book, because as soon as you start saying do this, they say this, you do that, then it sounds like manipulation to the outside world. I just talk about it, and I teach devotees in person how to be respectful to people and let them go when they're not interested. And it saves everyone a lot of time and energy, including the devotee, especially the devotee. Oh, this is... Okay, go ahead. Last one.
Just a 5-second statement. I can find the quote, but I'm paraphrasing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada said that the best Goshtiya Nandi is a Bhajana Nandi who preaches.
Yeah, and that's the other quote too, where Haridas Thakur is being glorified by Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami is glorifying Haridas Thakur, and he's saying that not only do you chant, or you follow properly, but you also preach. Therefore, you're the best devotee in the world, he said. So if you find somebody who's Bhajananandi and Goshniyanandi, then that's the perfect balance. And I've said that for a long time due to my own realization that the two things go together. If you just try to do Bhajananandi, you'll get dry, unless you're fully realized Chit Samadhi and you're seeing Krishna directly. And then you can sit in a room somewhere. I remember Prabhupada gave Bhajananandi to a devotee, a Dalmi, a Das. He told Prabhupada that he was dying and he only had a certain amount of time left. Remember this? It was 1975 in Chicago. There was a huge initiation. There was a bunch of deities, Gaura-Nitai deities installed, and then a huge initiation from the Radha Damodar devotees. And then Prabhupada also threw in on top, tell you what I'm going to do for you, throw in a Babaji initiation from a Dalmi. And he told him what to do. He said, stay in your room, don't ask for anything, just chant all day long. People bring you stuff, and we used to bring him stuff. And then he found out that he was misdiagnosed, and he wasn't actually going to die, and he immediately left.
Isn't this kind of Bhajananandi just like staying at Govardhana and reading?
This is the balance point. So Prabhupada told us 1974, when we met him in San Francisco, he said, when we were introduced as the book distribution party, he looked right at us and he said, you must also, and he used the word also, you must also, he said, I have not written these books just for selling. I want you to read them, become pure devotees, and go back to Godhead. So he didn't say, just go in a room and chant. He wanted us to sell his books, but he said, you must also read them. So, as I wrote in my book, this is the last thing I'll say and then we'll stop, is that rice is a good food, although I don't eat it anymore. And dal is a good food, but when you put the two together, according to Jamuna's encyclopedic cookbook in the section on rice, it says the synergy between those two gives you 42% more nutrition when they're combined. And so it's a similar idea. When you hear and chant and you also preach, then the two things together make a super sadhana. That's what I think is the intention Prabhupada had in The Secret. Gaur Premanande Haribol, dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Sri Panchatattva, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, 18 Thakur. If you so desire, please empower us to hear and chant like there's no tomorrow, and also distribute transcendental literature, the holy name, prasadam, and goodwill to all the people of the world, foregoing those who are not interested. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Kṛṣṇa. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalptaruscha Kripasinabhe Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavini Ki Jai.